The New York Knicks with Larry Johnson, Kurt Thomas, Patrick Ewing, Charlie Ward at the point, and Allen Houston. Lenny Wilkens, the coach of the Atlanta Hawks, the NBA's all-time wins leader. The native of Brooklyn, New York, returning home. He said it's always a thrill to come back home. And the embattled Jeff Van Gundy, his job in peril all season, only now taking the number 8 team in the East, New York, into the conference semifinals and on the verge of taking a commanding 3-0 lead if they can win today. Atlanta 0-13 when trailing 2-0, while the New York Knicks have usually closed out the deal. 18-2 went up 2 games to none. The officials, Ron Garretson, Steve Javie, and Joe DeRosa.
You know, Tom, there's history all over the place with those numbers, and I'm sure Lenny Wilkens did not show 0-13 to his team. He wants them to know that they got to get in the deal this afternoon, and it's got to start at the point with Blaylock and Steve.
34 in game 1. Long, nice move, spins around Thomas to lay it in.
Rare transition opportunities for both teams, as these teams normally like to slug it out as they stagger into their half-court games.
Lenny Wilkens saying they had to rebound to run. That time they got the board and got the transition bucket. Thomas.
And they're not giving him any help.
And one. Hurt. He usually needs a couple to get in rhythm. Blaylock off the runner with 3 on the shot clock. His first basket.
And Blaylock does a couple of things very well when he's playing well. He scores inside out, and he really ignites their defense. So watch Blaylock on the ball and coming down to make steals. Back to Thomas.
Open man, Johnson for 3. Nice rotation by LJ, who gives the LJ sign as he goes down court. You like that, Bill?
Oh, I've been really waiting for that one as Lenny Wilkens calls a timeout. I just wish a guy like Knicks, Larry Johnson, who has worked relentlessly to develop a 3-point shot.
See how long they remain is Knicks. As long as they're in front, I suspect. LJ back out to Ward. But they slough off, so he hits the 3.
What they're doing is going at Chris Crawford. And whoever he's guarding, they're going to take him in the low box and making the defense of Atlanta react.
Charlie Ward making that 3 despite no think. Allen Houston challenging Mutombo.
That's what Lenny Wilkens does not want. The deep shots are going to miss like Larry Johnson did, but to let them penetrate, get to the rim, first 2 for Allen Houston.
Where was Mutombo?
Mutombo's been a non-factor in this series on the defensive end. His move
checked by Thomas.
This is the same shot Smith could have taken it 5 seconds ago, decides to drive, and he gets 2. Good dance by Kurt Thomas, who cannot stick with him out on the perimeter.
Steve, all the Knicks have scored.
He is concerned about.
Coaches don't care. They have something in their mind, and nothing can dissuade them. As Patrick Ewing hits his first shot of the game.
A lot of the explanation for Patrick's success in the second day of back-to-back situation. Overconfidence.
Steve Smith, nice dribble to get free, and he hits his 3rd field.
That time with no idea what he was doing, just come down and give the shot to Mutombo as Sprewell comes in the ballgame.
To a giant welcome from the Garden crowd, replacing Larry Johnson. Latrell Sprewell, nothing sort of sensational in the first. Crawford with the long offensive rebound. To the basket, collision. And a blocking.
Box now, spins away.
The 6'9 Crawford had it rim out. Offensive rebound for a moment by.
If you're around him and he's not in a position to make a solid play, he'll give you a shot, and he's coming out of the ball game, and the high-flying Marcus Camby is coming in.
One of the stars of game 2. The problem is you get Thomas out of the game, and Camby comes in. He's been dynamic, 13 rebounds in game 2.
Well, the special second unit that Van Gundy has now at his disposal certainly has been a major difference in this series. With Atlanta, no depth whatsoever.
Camby knocked it away from Blaylock. Ward missed the shot. Camby tapped it in.
Of a delivery.
Allen Houston gives it to Sprewell. Pops back for space and hits. Made a big hop to create some space between himself and Crawford and knocked it down.
Nice interchange between us.
To await the winner of this series, and we'll have at least a week of rest.
7 on the shot clock for Grant Long.
Bill refusing to give it up. They were supposed to share that replay, folks. Allen Houston, he has 4 points. And away from the ball, whistle stops play.
Dudley. Now Smith wants it, and he wants to make something happen. It is into the floor, but they double team him. It's going to be a tough shot for the Hawks against the clock.
Floater by Tyrone Corbin. Tumble with Giroux, came up short, but then he tapped it in.
The great Sidney Wicks. Are you kidding? College Player of the Year, NBA Rookie of the Year.
Steve Smith with the three-pointer. And just to close the thought on Lenny Wilkens, he's coached and played in more NBA games than any other person in history. One of the 50 greatest players and 10 greatest coaches, has won more games. Marcus Camby slams home his 4th point.
Steve, I don't care how many times Mutombo watches that video. If he's going to stand underneath the hoop and try to block shots, he'll never get any more.
Corbin for 3.
Nice shot.
Mutombo with an offensive board. Steve and I were wondering, Bill, if that video of Camby dunking over Mutombo looked familiar to you at all.
Very familiar. That's what Dr. J used to do to me on a regular basis. When we went into the Hall of Fame together, Dr. J and I, every single one of his highlight videos was of him dunking on me.
Grant Long with a putback as the Hawks continue to pound the offensive board. It's keeping in the game. They have 9 offensive rebounds. They've tied it at 27.
Well, it's been the hot shooting of Steve Smith. He missed that 3, but he's right on the money. And Sprewell back on the money himself. The machine is Steve Smith's attack. And they may not need anybody else but Steve Smith this afternoon.
Right. He's capable, and Steve Smith has put in a...
You team them up with a shot blocking Mutombo. Oh, Camby. Too sweet. He had time to turn around and wait for Mutombo to get underneath that one.
Camby converts the steal into a slam. And New York has a 2-point lead.
Well, you remember all of the controversy about the trade, and now they're also in love with Marcus Camby, but it's the activity that creates it. Ed Gray.
Long missed the putback. Here come the Knicks on the break. Sprewell from Childs.
There's that revolutionary discovery of the fast break that we mentioned in the Showtime. What a novel concept. Outrun your opponents to get easy baskets.
We were talking to Marcus Camby yesterday, and we asked him how he was able to handle all the criticism and the unpleasantness resulting from the trade of Charles Oakley, an extremely popular player. He had a simple answer. He said, I don't read the New York newspapers. And again, the break. This time, LJ on the finishing end.
An 8-2 spread in fast break points for the Knicks. Lenny Wilkens forced to call a timeout. Every single one of the Knicks getting involved here. Camby pokes it away the first time, playing the passing lanes, a la James Worthy of the ex-Laker dynasty in the 80s. And the underneath pass, terrific hands by Latrell Sprewell.
6-0 run by the Knicks. All 6 points coming on the fast break. They lead it 35-29.
Meeting, in fact, did take place, and the Knicks are now denying it because they don't want Van Gundy looking over his shoulder. Finally, I spoke to Van Gundy, and he told me that he understands it intellectually. He understands the process. He says he has feelings, but what can he do? He can't spend all of his time worrying about it. Tom?
All right, Jim, right now things going pretty good for Van Gundy and the Knicks, though. The number 8 team in the East bidding to go up 3-0 in this conference semifinal series.
I bet Dave Checkers not being here has something to do with the fact he didn't want to see Jim Gray today.
After last Sunday, I guarantee it. Corbin misses a 3 underneath. Foul called on Chris Dudley of New York. Patrick Ewing returns to the fray.
Need, and he gives him his scoring. Sprewell has been able to post smaller guards, trying to work his way in against Ed Gray.
Latrell Sprewell playing with such confidence these days.
He has such a dominant right hand. Everybody has to honor that, and he has that spin back move. He has the step back that we saw earlier right in front of the Knick bench.
Mutombo cut off by Ewing. You know the story about Mutombo and Ewing in their summer games with Alonzo Mourning, the Georgetown alums. Tapped in beautifully. Walt Frazier, Clyde they call him, and a lot of people comparing a Houston and Sprewell to that past Knicks guard combination. Canby puts it home.
That was a great pass from Larry Johnson, and he drops it right into Canby. Canby's had a real impact since coming into the ball game.
Just boards already. Blaylock's pull-up won't go.
Now that's a rebound. That's what rebounders live for, coming down the lane.
I think probably because he climbed the back of the guy in front of him.
Wait a second. He just followed this ball in magnificently, saw it the whole way. They could not have called that foul on Marcus Camby.
So great, these recent possessions for Atlanta. Allen Houston was the man that replaced Larry Johnson. Here's Sprewell, hacked by...
Well, gets to the foul line. You've got very few guys who draw the respect of the officials.
Ed Gray out. Sprewell.
Latrell Sprewell. Sprewell and Allen Houston played against each other in their Southeastern Conference days. Sprewell at Alabama, Houston at Tennessee. But now, for the first time this season, they're starting to play very well together. They used to early in the season just stand and watch the other operate. Now playing well together.
Camby blocks it out.
Marcus Camby, another big play. New York leads. Coaches in the Motor City.
Don Chaney, who has been hugely responsible for the Knicks.
Came back in the game long.
It was long. Right into the hands of Sprewell. With Houston for three.
Good, quick giving up the ball by Sprewell. Sprewell is playing a game right now where if he gets it in one or two dribbles, he's right up with it. Otherwise, he's looking to get the other guys going, and that's really paid big dividends for Van Gundy.
New York equals its biggest lead.
They're trying to get Steve Smith some room to work. Camby.
A pivot foot, but here's Allen Houston moving beautifully off of the Sprewell penetration.
An example again of how well they're working together these days. Childs backing in on Blaylock, gets it to Houston. Tough fall away shot, Allen Houston, and he's in double figures with 11.
Houston got it going early by getting to the hoop. Couple of foul shot attempts, found his rhythm, and now the fadeaways, the long distance bombs are finding their range.
Well, the thing for Blaylock and the Hawks is to stay close, and so they've got to move the ball, move people a little bit quicker, and get off the perimeter. Smith is going to have to go against the clock.
Got the shot away, got his own rebound, and pumped it home. Well, that breaks a run where Long and Gray had scored the last 12 Atlanta points.
Injuries have hurt so many players' careers. I would have loved to have seen an injury-free Steve Smith have a 15-year career.
Well, despite his little dry spell the last few minutes, he has 17 in this first half. Houston missed that one. Dudley!
Well, Steve Smith is saying he was in the cylinder. It looked like that ball was above it, but Dudley's going to get two.
You can't stop Chris Dudley. You can only hope to contain.
He has 4 points, 5 rebounds.
Hey, Bill, I just want to tell you, Smith's career is not over. I mean, he may not get 15, but he's still around.
Wow, tough three-point shot by Mookie Blaylock. Chris Childs was right in his face, and Mookie popped it in. 10 seconds left in the half. Houston. Bounces in, Allen Houston.
That will forever be known as the Miami bounce.
Now stay tuned for the Prudential Halftime Report coming up after these messages. You're watching the NBA on NBC. Second unit continues to pay dividends.
The Knicks as a team shooting 51%, but it was Latrell Sprewell who's playing at a faster pace than everybody else is, setting him up, and Marcus Camby contributions in every aspect. The Knicks getting up and down the court. Latrell Sprewell virtually unstoppable, and when Marcus Camby can play passing lanes and finish, there is nothing that the Atlanta Hawks can do about it.
The New York bench outscoring Atlanta 24-6 and out-rebounding them 13-1. New York with a lead despite only 2 first-half points from Patrick Ewing. Three-pointer by Charlie Ward as New York.
Atlanta would have a chance.
Larry Johnson. Bound, he got his own. And an offensive foul on Steve Smith of Atlanta. Things unwrapped.
Doesn't have the second half quickness to get open.
Allen Houston. Timeout Atlanta. Well, in retrospect, that 39% shooting by the Hawks in the first half looks pretty good.
Sizzling.
The Garden where the Stars are out for game 3. Richard Lewis is here playing a little air guitar. There's Matt Dillon. Puff Daddy. Spike Lee, of course, in his courtside seat. Tim Hutton. And Chris Rock.
3 on the shot clock.
Ewing got it away. And hit. Only his spins and one. In the first 2 games, they've still been in every game. Mutombo. Those easy shots. Houston.
Lenny Wilkens needs another timeout. I think they have to go have a shoot around real quick in the auxiliary gym.
Well, if you can't finish at the other end, you can't give up the opportunity.
Walt Frazier, of course, courtside for today's game.
Dave Checkich would not be doing his job. Lineup for the Knicks that once they get running here, once the refs stop blowing the whistles, Dudley, just throw it up there and Dudley will take care of the rest.
Slammed it down. He has a half dozen points. You didn't call Dave Checkich, did you? They mentioned everybody else calling it, expressing interest.
No, but I think that Chris Dudley has to play with. He's got 7 rebounds in his life, but here's a guy who's got diabetes, who gives himself 4 injections of insulin every day. He has to take blood tests virtually on 4 times a day himself. Before every meal, before he goes to bed, has to give himself a shot. That's a tough way to go.
And he just picked up his 4th foul. Corbin. Out of bounds to New York.
That is the one flaw in the Hawk offense. You just can't stay out on the perimeter when you're struggling, and they've been tossing balls up there since we started the second half with very little success. They've got to get in a position where they can bring the ball to the hoop, get to the free throw line.
Look at this movement without the ball for the Knicks. Unheard of.
Canby
from Sprewell.
Who are these guys?
Double figures for Marcus Camby. Long. Rebounded by Houston. Beautiful. Sprewell, touch pass. And a foul on Atlanta. He leads the Atlanta attack, but it's been Larry Johnson, Patrick Ewing, Marcus. Camby, Dudley. Over Mutombo. Chris Dudley's been a contributor today.
Throw it down.
Sprewell against Blaylock. Laid it in.
The back of the rim, and it was a perfect outlet to a breaking Sprewell, and they have the Hawks on the rope.
Timeout Atlanta. New York has scored 9 in a row.
Staff and very loyal players, and he learned a hell of a lot from Pat.
Pat Riley is who you refer to.
Yes, I do. He's the best coach in the history of the NBA.
I'm sure he'll be happy to hear that. Mr. Van Gundy, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
There might be others.
Didn't make Coach Van Gundy cry.
I think Bill's pretty tough himself. You know, I think the old man is pretty tough himself. Meanwhile, the man who coached for 40 years, his prayers have been answered. The Hawks started the third quarter 0 for 10, and the fourth quarter 0 for 5.
Well, the Dudley free throw routine.
All right.
We're seeing it now. And here's a guy, we said earlier he has diabetes.
Now, what about his free throw form? Now, I want you to critique that.
This is beautiful. This is sheer grace. But Chris Dudley, who does have the diabetic problem, he runs a camp for diabetic kids, free for them to come there. Has to limit it to 64 kids because of the doctor-nurse ratio he has to have per kid. And so it's a very special thing out in Vernonia, Oregon, a suburb of Portland.
Way they're going to check out. Have a way to score the ball as the crowd brings their energy up for the defense of the New York Knicks. They've been working against the shot clock the entire second half. 5 for Grant Long.
Misses the three. Dudley and Mutombo locked up. Dikembe assessed the foul and scratched just barely to make the playoff. And there's the block shot by Camby. Sprewell, that could be a goaltend.
Out of the ball game, Rick Brunson in as LJ gives him that celebration with the signal that this one is in the hopper.
Even Herb Williams is doing the... Absolutely right. Dudley. 14 points.
Hanging around the rim, got 10 in the quarter, and the crowd is going nuts here in New York.
Steve, I'm still waiting for that Atlanta run.
Well, Bill, it's not coming today. I think the Hawks have flown, and, you know, it just continues in the series. They cannot score, and if you can't score, as McLeod scores, they just have not been able to see them go down.
Herb Williams, in his 18th season, who has appeared in over 1,100 NBA games, is about ready to come in. That's akin to the victory cigar. Camby.
Tom, we did the first game of the season here, Miami at the Knicks, and Marcus Camby was an absolute non-factor and showed no signs whatsoever. Now he is arguably their second best player behind Latrell Sprewell with the contributions that Marcus Camby's been making.
Herb Williams.
Marcus Camby has 13 points and 6 boards, countless intimidations, a number of blocks. Sprewell to the bench, but it's been Marcus Camby just doing so many things.
Well, New York led only 6 points at the half, but they turned up the defense on Atlanta to start both the third and fourth quarters. Atlanta was 0 for 10 to start the third, 0 for 6 to start the fourth. In each quarter, they went over 5 minutes without a field goal, and that sealed the deal for the New York Knicks. The Atlanta Hawks have never advanced past the second round, and New York about to go 7-1 against Atlanta all time in the playoffs.
And the worst thing about it is they put themselves in a position as Childs bust in, can't finish. And when you're down 3-0, nobody's come back from that. The Philadelphia 76ers gave it a valiant try this afternoon to get started. The Hawks, if they continue to play like this, will be eliminated tomorrow night.
It would start a week from today. Jeff Shepard, the rookie from Kentucky, enters the game for the Atlanta Hawks. And meanwhile, Chris Dudley, to a giant ovation, goes to the New York bench.
Terrific.
Fouled out with 14 points.
Fouled out. When you get an offensive game like Chris Dudley, forget the defense and just wait for him to bring you the ball. The cheers of Dudley resounding. It brings a little smirk to Chris's face.
A little sheepish smile at that. I don't think he's heard that too often. Final minutes. The Knicks will be looking for the sweep tomorrow night. That game will be on Turner. Camby with a jam.
The ball movement, we talked about it from the very beginning. Everything warm and fuzzy for the Knicks again.
The real story will be how do the Hawks respond to this beating this afternoon and whether they can come back and even make a series of it to avoid the broom.
And the New York Knicks will take a commanding 3-0 lead on the Atlanta Hawks, looking for the sweep here at the Garden tomorrow night. New York had 5 players in double figures. Houston and Sprewell 17 each. Camby had 15, Dudley 14, and Larry Johnson 12. 17 each for Atlanta were long and for Smith, but Steve Smith had 17.